music industry. I'm joined by three exceptional speakers, Jenny Tooth, Beth Widge, and Dhillon, and we're going to be discussing why it's such a good time to invest in the UK music industry. The UK music industry is booming at the moment, generating more than £5.8 billion to the UK economy on an annual basis, and year on year it is rising. That's up 11% from 2018, which was 5.2 billion. Employment is growing at a rapid rate. It's up 3% from 190,000 up to 197,000. And the total export revenue of the music industry is now 2.9 billion, up 9% from 2.7 billion previously. So as you can see, the UK music industry is a very, very good industry to be investing in, to be looking at this moment in time. And we're going to discuss why that is. Why is the industry such a good place to invest? What's making it grow at such a rapid rate? And why should you get involved now before it's too late? So to start this conversation, I'm going to allow my panel to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about who they are, what they do, and then we'll get into it. Starting with Jenny.
Thank you, and delighted to be here. I actually am the CEO of UK Business Angels Association. So I look after the trade body for business angel and early stage investing, bringing probably about £2.5 billion to investing in entrepreneurs each year, but obviously part of a much wider ecosystem working with venture capital and private equity right up the supply chain. So I'm very much looking forward to sharing insights around why this is a great time to invest in the music industry here in the UK.
Thank you, Jenny. Beth?
Hello, thanks for having me on the panel. My background is music publishing. So working most recently with Hipgnosis, who have gone on to raise a huge amount of investment to invest in copyright IP. It's listed on the London Stock Exchange as a new category to invest in, a new asset class, and has gone into the FTSE 250 as a company, you know, raising a lot of investment for purchasing IP and catalogue of both UK and US artists and writers, but it's grown hugely in the the 2 to 3 years that's been up and running. It's a very interesting area right now to be looking into the investment in IP music. So my background is music publishing. Thank you.
Excellent, thanks, Beth. And Ach.
Hello, my name's Dhillon. I'm the CEO of a relatively new organisation called the Music Federation. We launched in midway through August 2021. The Music Federation is a new kind of distribution service, so primarily implemented on the master audio space. However, we do represent an evolution in that space, both in accounting terms to our members, of which we currently have 60. I suppose you could call them clients, but we prefer to call them members. We account at release level as standard, which in turn allows our members to grow in a more efficient and financially beneficial way. In a shorter time frame, we envisage being able to turn these businesses into a profitable position within 18 to 24 months, which is a reduction from the usual 5-year projection to produce a profitable music business. On top of that, we provide finance and other operational and promotional services to ensure that our members can adequately participate within this new music business without having to face the usual prohibitive costs of entering the business in the first place.
Excellent stuff. Thank you, Ach. All right, so let's get into this. So the first question, with music contributing 5.8 billion to the economy, we're seeing a sustained growth within the market. does this make the UK music industry a viable investment opportunity and investment proposition? Jenny, I'm going to come to you with this one, and so that you can look at this from a investment perspective.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, obviously, it's worth saying that probably for many years, music would not have been seen as a great investment opportunity here in the UK. It's, as for all the reasons mentioned, it's a really broad industry, and so many players wouldn't understand how to really back other entrepreneurs in the music industry. I think what we've actually seen is a real rise in the investment opportunities now, and obviously with streaming being one of those very big important areas, but also organized opportunities such as we're already hearing about today through publishing. The big thing as an investor is understanding what to invest in. And very often it's because people couldn't understand the metrics or the business models of investing in music, which was often what might put investors who are looking at this program today and might make them think, this is an area I want to invest in. But I think it's worth bearing in mind that with technology, we have so many more data points, so many more analytics. We can really understand where those growth opportunities lie. And you've already heard, we've already got companies launching on the stock exchange here as well. So, fantastic opportunities for growth and returns for investors. It's worth bearing in mind that here in the UK, we have a really fantastic infrastructure which really supports investment. So we have not only trade bodies such as my own and the British Venture Capital Association, but we also have a very strong funds through our government. The British Business Bank has huge co-investment potential. So there are lots of opportunities to come in, invest and co-invest alongside investors here who are already backing music businesses. But I think also because we have such a strong startup infrastructure, such a huge support for entrepreneurs, AIM being one of those great trade bodies that's really supporting entrepreneurship here in the UK. We have great accelerators and incubators. We have a very big sort of startup infrastructure, and this also really helps to build and grow great businesses. And really, therefore, we've got this is all the basics there. The landscape is very much in place to support investment. So I would say we're seeing a very big influx now in international investment and in players want to come in and find great opportunities. And I would say through our own interests as investors in backing music and the infrastructure that we have in place, we do have a very good environment for other investors who want to come and explore our industry. And I think with great trade bodies that you've already been hearing about today, who are there to really help put those investment opportunities out there, it really is a very great time to invest. The fact you can understand business models so much more easily than you could before with so many more metrics and data points as investors, it does make it much easier to understand those investment opportunities. So yes, I would say good timing and a great time to think about the industry as a place to invest.
Excellent. Thank you, Jenny. That was brilliant. Really good oversight there. Just to touch on something that you said, I'm going to come to Achal with this one. So it's argued that there's an oversupply of content, which you mentioned, and that investors might not fully understand the market. So if there's an oversupply of content and an undersupply of high quality content when it comes to music, does it make it harder to create a return on one's investment? How true is that? And what would you say to rebuke that or to dispel that kind of myth?
I'd refute that, because that has not been my experience in the last, particularly in the last 2 years or so. So I suppose I'd frame an answer to this in a pre-pandemic answer and a post-pandemic answer. Prior to the pandemic, there was very little innovation in the what we now know to be the live streaming space. That the technology certainly existed, but the audiences weren't there due to, I imagine, the normalcy of people's day-to-day lives according to them at the time. myself, my community, and well, the rest of the population actually in this country went through a period of extreme isolation, and it really scares me to think of a pandemic or a lockdown where perhaps we didn't have access to streaming technology. So as the demand has actually increased, the audience size has actually increased, and a good example of this in terms of relevance to China. Recently, we have started working with a new company called Bigo. I believe it's a Southeast Asian based company that has a subscriber base of over 300 million people. So the idea of the UK having an oversupply or overstock of content, I'm pretty sure that we can apply that to 300 million people in just one instance. And as long as the content itself is relevant, is culturally enriching, and is entertaining, I haven't seen a slowdown in the adoption of it or the monetization of it. It only seems to be increasing with the amount of content rather than a downturn due to the oversupply. So I wouldn't be able to say exactly how true that is. I'll only be able to say what my experience has been in a very recent context, and in relevance to why now is the right time to invest into it. It seems to be on the increase in correlation with the increase in the financial value of the industry itself. There seems to be a clear correlation between the two, in my opinion.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that, Beth?
Yeah, I think just going back to the point about sort of lots of content, I think now with there being many platforms on social media, there's lots of ways. I think it's a really positive thing, because I think, you know, people can do things a little bit more organically. They can release things self-release. There's lots of opportunities. They can go through major labels if they choose to go that direction, or they can keep it more to themselves. They can retain their rights. They can retain the ownership of their masters if they're able to do it in a way that's on a more independent basis. So I think it brings a lot of options to the table, I think, which is really interesting, and it means the access to listen to these all sorts of different options is much more widely available. I think the main thing with this is that there is a lot in the market, that absolutely, but being a publisher, as I am, it always comes back to the song. So to me, the main thing is that the songs that are the best, that are really good, that people really relate to and click with, will be the ones that, you know, penetrate the markets, come through. People, you know, you get, in general, they're good songs. Occasionally there's songs that are more faddy, but in general, it's because the songs are, you know, fantastic songs that people can relate to, they connect with. So I'd say it's positive that there's lots of sort of lots out there, and that people can really, you know, delve into and connect with.
I think it's really reflective of what the agendas of the large social media sites like Facebook have been doing since the European Copyright Directive was passed as well. And although as a country we haven't exactly adopted that into British law, nevertheless, a lot of the social media sites are not being seen as passive conduits anymore. So the monetization is there because the rights holding and the licensing is now there. It wasn't there 3 or 4 years ago. So again, in terms of like contemporaneous relevance, now seems to be the right time to move on that, now that the legalities are there, I would say.
Yeah, and with your point there, things are changing. The payments set up, I mean, with things being more online, more digital, you know, publishing itself is a very sort of old way of doing things. It was originally from the you know, the publishing of sheet music. I mean, nowadays it's so much more advanced than that. And I think with, you know, Central European central licensing and things like that, where because it is digital, the payment setups can be much more transparent. whether that is the writer themselves or whether they've sold their catalogue and that's now an investor. Sorry, my internet's saying it's unstable. Is it still going?
You're fine. You froze for a second, but it was
okay.
fine.
Okay, a notification. So yeah, just saying that you know, I think going forward, the ways of payment coming through, you know, the turnaround should be a lot quicker. And as you're saying, with the copyright board, there have been legislations that are coming into place, and I think that's really important with the investment actually in music at the moment, because currently the balance for the streaming is publishers get a different rate to the record labels, and this is constantly something that as you know, publishers and people who look after songwriters, we're constantly sort of trying to redress that balance, and that's what we were doing a lot at Hipgnosis, with trying to, you know, put the songwriter back on the sort of in the main view for people, because ultimately without the song there is, you know, the whole industry is based on the song. So I think, you know, investing, just to give you an example, a friend wrote a song that was released back in 2014 by an artist called Corinne Bailey Ray, Put Your Records On, which some of you may or may not remember. Sorry, 2004 it was released, and that was a worldwide, that was from the UK, from up north in Yorkshire, little town up in Yorkshire, and it got released in 2004 by a Leeds artist, Corinne Bailey Ray, and that was a worldwide hit that was nominated for Grammys and Ivor Novellos and all sorts of awards. That then a young artist recently, a Mormon artist in the US, in Utah, was in lockdown going through his mum's record collection, bit bored, came across this song that he remembered he absolutely loved because he'd always heard his mum playing it on vinyl or something, and he decided to do his own version. So he's just released that. It then became a viral TikTok sort of campaign, just totally organically. He then got signed to Disruptor, and he is now looking at nearly 1 billion streams on that song, and that's, you know, kind of nearly 15 years on. So I think evergreens, that we would call those sort of songs evergreens, that they just, you know, keep generating, people are still listening to them, and then, you know, something like that, someone covers it again, and then it breathes a whole new life into that song again, which is great for the songwriter. And
it extends creativity, and that's really powerful to have that sort of IP relay in the, you know, in a cultural sense, but also it's clearly generating revenue as well. It's brilliant. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think you've partly answered what was going to be my next question, but I'm going to lead straight into it because it's a nice little segue there, in terms of, you know, publishing companies securing capital to invest in their assets, and what is making that such a sound investment, and how much of a sustainable investment is that for an investor. So maybe you can explain a little bit about why it's a good investment for the publishing, which you've slightly done, and then maybe Jenny, you could come in and from an investment point of view.
So based on that, with the publishing, it's owning from the publishing side, it's very much on the songwriting, the person who has written the song, that's where the ownership of the IP sits. There is also the copyright side of the master, which is on the record label side, but publishing just looks after the IP and the ownership and the copyright that sits in the copyright of the songwriting. And that is currently the interesting thing at the moment with streaming and how it's all set up, which I have slightly touched on, is that currently with streaming platforms such as Spotify, the balance paid through to publishers versus record labels is very disproportionate, currently sits around, I think it's around 15% publishers and 55% labels. So there's a really real imbalance there, which there's a huge push at the moment with you know, songwriters and publishers talking to the UK government about redressing that balance. So should there be, which there should be, the Copyright Board also are looking into this, and they're doing work on this. And should that balance change slightly, if you've invested into songwriting and a catalogue, an evergreen catalogue, for example, and you're currently, the streams are currently getting paid through at 15%, if that balance changes, even if it's just 1%, you're already immediately going to see an increase. And there's a huge push on that to get that changed over, and to look at that and make that more fair, because currently it's unbalanced. So there's that, and also with evergreens and hit songs, it's the main kind of setup that we were looking at. Hit songs, proven hit songs, because that way you can look at previous income and you can look at the previous 5 years or the previous 15 years, and then it gives you an opportunity to be able to look at the going forward forecast over the next 5 years and how that could potentially look based on obviously the previous years. And so it gave us a good, you know, investing in hits from bands like Blondie or you know, the Eurythmics. I mean, these are proven hit songs that are just going to keep, and also there's the sync income as well. So proven hit songs that people want to sync, they want to use in films, advertising. There's you know, another element there, so you see a bit of income from the sync side of things. So that can, you know, that kind of comes in ebbs and flows, but you can see a bit of a trends. I think Jenny, I think
you're sorry, I was, apologies. No, I mean, that's a really helpful overview for investors, because often as an investor, it is, what is it I'm going to actually invest in? Where is my money going? And understanding how, you know, where the opportunity to back intellectual property lies is very important to investors, because we'll tend to back, you know, where is the knowledge creation, where is the IP, and where is the value being created that I can invest in and I can see my money grow. So I think that's been a very helpful explanation. But I think one of the things that's really been about is really understanding where those proportions of revenue come from. So that in itself is obviously shifting, as you mentioned, and that's, you know, again, something for investors to bear in mind. I think one of the other points that you touched on that's really important in terms of understanding where is the value creation and where is the long-term opportunity is also the wider commercial opportunities that you also touched on, Beth, because clearly if you're investing, you're getting the IP rights, you're investing in the IP rights, what happens to those IP rights and where you can make more money out of them obviously lies in other products, in films, in other commercial opportunities. So, you know, as an investor, you know, you're backing something that not only has long-term value, which is the, you know, the whole evergreen point that you were mentioning by, you know, having kind of catalogues, etc., but also knowing where those applications can lie that will make further opportunities for you. So I think as an investor in music, you do need to understand that whole landscape around, you know, where is the content created, where is the IP owned, and where is going to be the future value. And probably the other part of it, I think, that's been especially helpful now is that we've got a lot more of those metrics to be understood. The whole payments and the whole revenue generation is much less obscure than it used to be, much more transparent. So again, easier to see where the growth opportunities lie. So I think, as you know, for anyone contemplating investment, it is always important to understand that whole kind of landscape of where IP, where revenue, where value is created, and what the long-term opportunities are. And I think now the business of making entrepreneurial investments is much easier to understand. Before it was in the hands, I think, of far fewer players. And perhaps that's also been reflected, Ben, in the fact that private investors are starting to kind of syndicate and draw their knowledge together and share those deals and bring their deal flow and pipeline together and really pull that. So we're seeing through organizations like AIM now, obviously seeing those investor syndicates coming around the music industry, which I think is very valuable indeed. And I think it's all because people understand the opportunities much more than they did. So thanks for that. And I think that anyone who didn't understand the music industry hopefully will start to see that once you get your head inside it, it's a great place to invest.
Just to add on to that point, Jenny, I think as well, just one thing, like a question for everybody of that kind of, if you're feeling a bit down and you kind of, wallowing, what do? You listen to music. Or if you're feeling happy and you want to go and party, what do? You listen to music.
That's also important. Yeah,
sort of the soundtrack of everybody's lives, and it's there always that people, and actually people working from home through this pandemic, and obviously this has put a totally different spin on things because everyone's whole lives have we've all been in lockdown and working from home. What does everybody do? They listen to music. And all right, so we can't go to the live gigs and festivals so much, even though things are opening up, but people listen to music while they're doing sitting at home doing work, or the kids are listening to music. Everybody's still listening to a lot of music, and it's there for good times and the bad times, so it's incredibly valuable.
I mean, in terms of like the consumption habits that I kind of like noticed throughout the country, you'd be very hard pressed to find someone in the UK that actively doesn't listen to music or doesn't get involved in the cultural aspects of, say, our live music culture. Festivals, when I was 15, 16, about a billion years ago, festivals were very few and far between. They were seen as sort of like the utmost sort of like luxury, and now it's just a way of our yearly lives. It's a little unusual that I hang out with someone that hasn't been to a festival at some point, and there are so many different investment points here. I think, publishing and recording music are certainly there. I honestly feel we are about to go through a golden age of live. It has been, I don't think it's any secret that it has been utterly made desolate as far as the, we've seen a music industry in the UK where live doesn't operate. And I've, given my positions at Festival Republic, we also run one of the largest independent promotions businesses in the UK currently. Everything you're saying, Beth, it's so culturally embedded into us. It's like food, water, and air. I genuinely feel the people of this country see it as an absolute essential to their day-to-day lives rather than a condiment to,
Yeah, I think it's the soundtrack to people's lives. It makes you think of a place that you were when you hear a song or that you love. Yeah. And also it can be any language, or it can be songs even without words, but just music in general.
Perhaps that's the thing about it as an investor, though. It's because investing in something that gives pure pleasure and and has huge impact and sustainability, I think is something that I think most people would think about when they make an investment. Because if you invest in things that just kind of everything is hard tech, you won't get that same pleasure. So I think the combination of tech and skill and creativity is probably where it makes such a great appeal to investors.
I think also, with the appeal factor, there's something to be said for saying, I own a part of Sweet Dreams, or a song that you've always loved.
Absolutely.
For sure. So looking at that and the fact that it's embedded in our culture, and as you mentioned, it's being played all the time through the pandemic. We couldn't go to shows, but constantly music was being played. So previously, recorded music wasn't seen as something that was very investable because of the way in which it was sold. It had to go, there was transport, delivery costs. It was all about the racking. And then once you didn't have that racking, the sales started to drop off. Once you weren't at the front of the store, the sales started to drop off. With streaming, recording music has kind of become more of a long-term asset with potential to generate daily earnings. Why is now the time to get into that investment, and what do the returns look like on that type of recorded music? I'm going to go straight to you for this one.
I've just spent the the last 2 years going through a number of catalog acquisitions. Catalog meaning, in this context, recorded music that has been previously released. It's not a new release. As Beth and Jenny are alluding to in the context of publishing and elsewhere, these streaming has come in the last 15 years and actually created a new market where one was failing before. We were desperately trying to find ways as an industry to attenuate the new communication methods, the instantaneous communication methods that generally the internet's offered up. I believe we then saw, Napster as an immediate threat, and then decided, oh wait, there might be an opportunity in that because people are using the platform. So as we sort of cozy up to the tech sector and the different opportunities that it lays, I suppose inevitably the end result was going to be what entities known as DSPs, your Spotify's, your Apple Music's, etc. And without this, undoubtedly, my record label, which is called Killing Moon, and my music federation simply would not exist. Streaming has advanced so much to the point that people see the master copyrights. I very much hope that it will, be exactly the same for publishing fairly shortly. They see recorded music copyrights in the streaming context as securities for loans because the revenues are so stable. Now, we've also just had a DCMS inquiry into streaming and trying to approach how we improve wealth that is generated at one side and filtering it down to the rights holder way at the other side. And I think with models like the Music Federation, unashamedly, but also the increase in real-time accounting reportage, more frequent remittance to these artists, and the stability of the streaming copyrights themselves within that market that is obviously increasing exponentially, it's fairly obvious that that in itself could be seen to be one of the most attractive and one of the most immediate areas for investment within the UK music industry. Other anecdotal things to mention in this space is the sheer number of pure financing partners that have emerged over the lockdown period. One in particular that we work with rather closely, who are friends of AIM. We've introduced them to the sector after admittedly putting them through quite a fair bit of due diligence, is a company called Beatbread, who are going around white labeling advanced facilities for different companies. I believe there was a post in Music Business Worldwide recently about them doing a white label service for advances with United Masters. So we've even arrived at the point where, the holy grail is securing the intellectual property rights because they clearly generate money both in the immediate and long term. That's investable. But we're also at a point with the music industry where we seem to be getting into the money lending business in its purest form. Sometimes the rights holder just needs the money in order to get going. And with more cottage industries available, I feel that actually makes the investment portfolio that much more wider. So I hope that's answered the question, Ben.
Yeah, I think you comprehensively covered that. So music is clearly a good investment. We've managed to dispel the myth that, it's a very high risk investment and something that we should steer away from. It's a good investment, but why should we invest in British music? What is it that makes British music a lot more investable? At the moment, as I mentioned in the intro, Britain is second only to America for exporting music. We export 2.7 billion pounds worth of music annually, and that's rising steadily. What makes this such a good investment to invest in British music? Whoever would like to lead.
I can start with that. I would say the sheer talent. We're on this small island, but going back to music being such a cultural thing, and it's so embedded in culture and involved in everybody's daily lives, Britain itself has a huge, diverse, culture here. I mean, especially sort of the big cities, London, Bristol, Manchester. We have, it's very diverse in London. I think that reaches then and appeals to the worldwide market as well, because we're not just sort of heads down focused on one certain type of music. I think we have a fantastic range of. I've recently worked with an Afrobeat band called Kokoroko. They've all based in the UK, but have been influenced by incredible sort of artists from around the world, and it's sort of this nouveau jazz sound that has just come out of sort of South London, and there's so many people kind of involved, and it's just such a. But then that leads into different areas, and then there's obviously the pop music that we've got Ed Sheeran, we've got Adele, people like that who are worldwide superstars, who that songwriting is incredible. They work with writers here in the UK, also in America, but I think we just have such an amazing pool of talent here.
Absolutely. Oh, Jen, do you want to go?
No, carry on. No, carry on.
I was just going to say that I completely agree. The cultural importance of where music sits within within the British people, and the diverse range of what it means to actually be British, I think allows us to have a reach in musical terms far beyond a common language that otherwise allow us to. You go to markets, say like the Nordics, you go to Canada, you go to the States, and all these, we all trade with each other, these countries, in a very export-import sort of setting. I'm very lucky that I get to go to a lot of conferences where, the Norwegians will want me to do something with their new priority songwriter. Can we convert this into this market? Because even then, those markets will recognize that they want to break here. Why do they want to break here? In fiscal terms, we could be seen as a stepping stone to the world's largest market. If you're vetted here, then apparently the Americans might adopt you in that way. That is a very tough market to crack due to how large it is, and due to how many different cultures subsist in there. But I think I could probably give a really flowery example of exactly how this transcends language and how it crosses borders so effortlessly. I manage, at last check, around about 7 or 8 different artists. My oldest management client is a DJ producer called Draper. He's worked with a lot of pop artists like Rita Ora, a lot of rock bands like Bring Me the Horizon, and there is, a suggestion in there, the wide range of different other artists that you could engage with at just one source. I remember he did about maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, he did a Ask Me Anything session on Reddit, and we heard from some very nice Brazilian kid. I can't remember what his name was, and he didn't actually ask a question. He said, "Thank you for that song that saved my life." Now, that's not only philosophically and emotionally quite powerful, but also economically quite powerful. If this kid speaks Portuguese, he doesn't understand the words in this music, yet the music itself conveys an emotion, a feeling, a will to carry on. And if that kid carries on, will he then go on to produce more music? Will he then be, in fiscal terms, economically yielding in terms of the decision that he made to carry on because that one piece of music got through to him? Now, that's really powerful. Music as a but-for cause to generate fiscal terms for the business. So yeah, sorry, Jenny.
No, not at all. No, you absolutely very much sort of in a way you just really in summarising both Beth and H really what the great infrastructure we have here, because you've not only got the talent and the skills, but you've actually got a lot of organisational infrastructure, which is actually helping that that talent to successfully commercialise and come to market. So I think one of the other benefits we have is actually, and you did touch on it, H, is that you mentioned DCMS, the Department of Culture, Media, Digital and Sport. We've actually got a government that's recognising the creativity and innovation and actually backing it and encouraging and leveraging private investment alongside that. So I think we're fortunate in that we've got a very strong recognition at government level of the importance of creativity and obviously the important role that music plays within that. And I think added to which, and it's something obviously that we've also been able to use now, is that we've got the digital infrastructure now to start successfully exploiting that. So I do think those are very important points. Probably the other thing is we do have a very vibrant investment landscape here in the UK as well. And obviously, and it isn't just investing in tech. We've got a landscape that's really seeing the convergence of technology with creativity, and especially over this last 2 years that we've all been talking about. So I think that we've got a very strong opportunity now for investors to support the really strong infrastructure that we have and the real players in the industry to really make sure that that talent and skills and innovation is successfully commercializes and produces huge growth opportunities. So I would say anyone who is looking at investing here in the UK music industry can be sure that there's a very strong structure and infrastructure that would support their own investment interests and a real readiness to co-invest and welcome new funds and new investors here in the UK. And it's not just about London, which we've already touched on. We are talking about it being a UK-wide, where we have both creative clusters of great music and musical players and entrepreneurs, but also a public private infrastructure that will help to support that investment. So I would recommend people not just look at London, and Beth has already touched on great songs and writers that are coming from all around the UK, and we do have access to some really great players. So I think really the combination of all of this does make it a very exciting opportunity and environment for anyone contemplating this at this time.
Just touching on what both Jenny and Beth have said about talent supply chain. We're not just looking at the creators. Beth, you're absolutely right. The lifetime of a copyright and the financial gains to be had starts and usually ends with how good the song is at the end of the day. But we're also making meaningful strides in investing into the talent pool of the people that work within this music industry. And I have to say, having been around the world quite a few times and seen how other music markets operate, there is no one more tenacious and adaptable than British people when it comes to the music industry. You just need to go to one of these festivals, look at how they operate in a production area, and that's how much they care. That I think that's something also quite important to say. Like, why do we do all this stuff? Because not only because it's culturally important, but for some reason we actually care about each other. We actually care about the robustness of our community, and that in itself makes it a more sustainable investment if we're looking out for each other in that way.
Thank you. So I think you've all kind of given a great case in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the market, in terms of the international reach of the British music industry. So if I'm going to invest, you've convinced me to invest in music. If I'm going to invest in music, is it not safer for me to put my money into Universal, Sony, Warner, nice safe bet, rather than looking at an independent label or publisher What would give me the, why would I invest in an independent over the major? Why shouldn't I just passively put my money in, buy some shares in Universal and say, I'm in? Give me a reason.
Am I allowed to say because they're just really boring? I feel in efficiency terms, we're talking quite a lot about a talent supply chain. We can show this empirically. I don't have the stats right in front of me, but you know, the independent sector has a strong reputation for turning pennies into pounds. We are just a lot more, I wouldn't say frugal, I'd say we're a lot more thrifty than our major label cousins. We are not encumbered with perhaps the same sort of fixed assets that we have to think about on a day-to-day basis. My community are quite happy to meet up with our laptops in a remote space. We don't have to think about overheads in quite the same way as our major label brethren have to, I suppose. I would also say that we are far more adaptable, and I think that's largely evidence in the outcome of how things are looking in a post-pandemic world. My own business, I suppose, is a decent example of that, and the fact that we are enabling other independent businesses alludes to that strong sense of community, that I am not worried about overly competing with the person next to me. I am more concerned about how I assist them and render them able to be a really robust trading partner of ours. So I think that that mentality is written into the DNA of the independent sector. Most evident, also we could look at how this is evidenced in the trade body terms. You know, I am also a director, a board member at the Association of Independent Music. I have been for the last 5 years. And what I've seen in that sort of like time is fostering this idea, this ideology, the spirit of the independent sector, and why our talent supply is somehow better or more high valued. I think we are experts in building fan bases, and we now have access to exactly the same retail resources. I think we are also experts in direct consumer revenues as well. We have more innovation in that space in cultivating dedicated fan clubs to our artists, and I guess it seems a bit more nicer, I guess, in PR terms. It's a lot more communal, it's a lot more cooperative, it's a lot more fun, I would say. And I say that from the perspective of someone who has worked at a major label for quite a long time. I do consult with their campaigns. There is a place for major labels. I think we're just a bit more innovative. We're a bit more fun. We're a bit more relevant, I would say.
Thanks, Ach. Beth, your thoughts?
I'm going to go back to the point that being a publisher, to me, it comes down to the song ultimately, and whether that's on a major label or an independent label, it's down to the actual physical IP that you know is the value. However, saying that, I've always worked for independence. I've always gone for that independent. I think going back to what Act's saying of like, it's the effort. You know, people don't get into this industry because you know you get into it because you love music. That's why you get into it, and you care, and you want to do, you know, you want to work with talented people. You want to, it's a community. You want to build and work within, and build and, you know, support those who, you know, to get the opportunities. And I think in the independent sector, we do that very well. We get behind the talent, we support them, and we find those opportunities, whether it's investment grants, those sorts of things, to bring that talent and those creators to the forefront, and try and, you know, I'm currently sort of working with a lot of artists up in the north, and, you know, there's a big company based in London that are also looking to open the studios in the north, because the talent there is obviously, you know, it's there's so much all around, that it's important that that all sort of filters through. And so London is a very strong, you know, city for talent, but the country in general is so strong. And I think the independents just have that kind of that drive and that want to get out there and you know, find that and bring it and nurture it and work with people and bring it to the forefront.
I mean, I would agree with that, in that I think as investors, investing in, you know, in kind of real innovation, and someone has, you know, and talent and the opportunity to really build growth, will be much greater than a little share of a big, you know, a big company and a big record label. I think the opportunity as an investor, and obviously speaking very much as someone who goes in at the early stage of investing, the opportunity to, you know, to go in early and be part of that growth story is, you know, is much more exciting when you're looking at the kind of independent industry as it is, rather than the very established corporates and those that are probably have much less room for growth, innovation and opportunities. So I would say to investors, if you're interested in, you know, in real venture, in the venture end of investing, then this is a much more exciting part of the market than it would be to invest in kind of safe corporates.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to just summarize, just a quick summary of why British music industry, why now is the right time to invest in the British music industry, based on the conversation that we've just had and taking everything into account. I'll start with you, Ach.
You're going to do that. My feeling, and the fact that we've formed a federation of different music companies positioned in different areas of the world, the largest concentration of, and being headquartered, of course, in the UK, I think speaks for itself in terms of denoting our relevance to the world. In my opinion, it feels like this investment opportunity is going to move anyway. It is inevitable that the music business, due to the music business's ongoing expansion in financial terms, the increase in the availability of intellectual property and the ability to generate revenue from it has only increased in the last 3 years. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be some more cool technology development that I'm not even aware of at this sort of point, which makes the whole thing really exciting. This line of work not only gives me a very strong livelihood, it actually gives me a very strong sense of purpose as well. And you know, with that kind of like guile, that kind of adaptability, that kind of tenacity that I find in the independent community, I am certain that it is going to move anyway in a very positive financial direction. So I would say right now is absolutely the time to invest before someone else gets there, I guess.
Great, thanks, Ach. Beth.
Yeah, I think, you know, all the work that we've been doing when I was at Hipgnosis, you know, it just, the fact that it's an asset class that's recognised on the London Stock Exchange currently, all the work that we've put into that, raising hundreds of millions to invest into catalogues, you know, lots of writers were coming forward to say, you know, oh, okay, so this is happening now. So people are purchasing catalogues, people are investing. My catalogue's now up for sale. Do you want to have a look at that? So I think it's sort of started to open things up so that people are much more aware of opportunities when it comes to, you know, sort of IP and catalogues and investing on that side of things. I just think there's a lot more sort of conversation happening around investment and how it's become, you know, music has become an asset class that is like oil or it's like gold. It's, you know, it's very valuable and it keeps giving and it keeps being valuable. And then with the right sorts of teams, you know, independent teams working on those catalogues and representing them, you can find more opportunities and you can grow those catalogues and add value to that investment.
Thank you. And Jenny, last word from you.
I think so much has been said about the opportunity right now. And I think, obviously just, reinforcing the fact that I think we have such very strong infrastructure here and really strong bodies like AIM and the Music Federation that are really sort of helping to build and grow the industry and make it highly attractive to investors. I think the fact that we've got very strong, government support, which creates a really good infrastructure. And we've also talked about the geography, given that the talents and the opportunities are not just in London, the capital city, but very much around the UK. And I think because we've got an investment community and those who are from the industry who are investing as co-investors, I think there is a really strong environment for any investor who hasn't entered the UK music industry market so far to come in and find their place and find those opportunities. And you've seen that the channels exist quite clearly through the organisations that have been speaking to you today. So I would just say that it's a right opportunity to explore now, and that there are real growth opportunities, and that I think co-investment and international growth and opportunities are what we would all be very welcome to here in the UK right now.
Excellent. Thank you, Jenny. So there you have it. You've heard from our three experts as to why now is a good time to invest in the British music industry. If you would like to invest, if you would like to know more, if you'd like to find out more about the industry or have more discussions about investing, please do get in touch with us here at AIM. You're more than welcome to do so. ben@aim.org.uk. You can contact me there. But I'd like to thank my guests for their time, for their expert knowledge and thoughts and opinions. So thank you to Jenny, Beth, and Ach so much for being a part of this. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.